I'm going to show you how to be able to make your own fire starters. This is a silicone candy sheet that I've used a few times, obviously. And I'm going to show you how to be able to use this with your wax and your lint on how to be able to get fire starters that can last up to 15 minutes. These are only 1-inch cubes and they're about half an inch high. And they will last for 15 minutes. And it will literally cost you nothing to make these. And you will have at least 40 of them based on the size of this sheet. So let's get to it. So here is our workstation. I have a simple little pot, something that I got at Goodwill. It was like $5-6, just something I knew that I could go ahead and destroy if I wanted to. One of the fun features, or one of the better features that I like about it, is these little pour spouts. It is actually very, very helpful to have this when pouring it here into our mold, just because it allows it to be able to pour in easier instead of just splashing everywhere. Can't say that it doesn't splash necessarily, but once you get it to that right level with the right amount of wax pouring out of it, it doesn't have any problems pouring it into each one of these individual slots, so that way we can get that filled up. So that was one of the first things that you are going to need is a pot. Something that you can use, something that your wife isn't going to care that you destroy, because this thing is going to get messy inside and out. Now the next thing obviously we're going to need, as I mentioned before, is wax. We're mostly going to be covering here with paraffin wax. Another thing that we are going to need is that dryer lint I talked about. Yes, this old stuff that you get from the side of your dryer. Sorry. I've been hoarding a little bit. Got this huge grocery store bag and a couple others. But we do have those kind of waxes here, and all that lint. Now another thing that you are going to need is jute twine. Yes, jute twine. If you are not familiar with what this is, or what this is very familiar to, think of potato sacks, like when those gunny sack races. It's the exact same thing, but in twine. I find that this actually allows you to burn it a whole lot easier, and it likes to absorb up the wax really, really easily too, so it's kind of a win-win for that. I think I got that in the gardening aisle, maybe even the craft section. This one had particular 190 feet. Yeah, I think it was like maybe $8 at Walmart. So not too expensive, but I've only gone through maybe a third of it using a lot of these waxes and everything that I've been doing here. So yeah, let's go ahead and get right on into that. So let's go ahead and start off first with our paraffin wax. Supposedly with each one of these waxes, they all have a different kind of melting point. Beeswax supposedly is the most heat resistant, and so it should at least take a lot more heat to be able to melt that, as well as, I'm hoping that it's going to last a lot more in the timing of our wax, our little fire starters, so we can have them burn a lot longer than our paraffin wax. I don't have any soybean wax, so we're not going to be using that here today. So our main comparison is just going to be looking at the paraffin wax as well as the beeswax. So first thing that we're going to want to do is go ahead and turn on our oven. Our stove. Let me see if I can actually talk right here today. Just go ahead and take what you got, toss it in here. I find that without having to worry about the wax getting too hot and being too cold, the just right setting for me so far has been about 4, maybe 4.5. If the wax is too hot and you try to put it in your mold here, it does take a long time for that wax to actually harden. But I find that if I go any really lower than a 4, then once I start pouring it into here, I find that it doesn't soak up completely into the lint, and it doesn't go all the way to the bottom of the mold, and so it leaves a nice dry patch in that lint, so it's not really water resistant if it ever does get wet. So 4 is about right average here for me. You can try it on your own stove. This is actually a fairly new one. It's about a year and a half old. So yeah, we'll go ahead and fast forward through this real quick. All right, while we are waiting on that to start melting, okay, gotta make sure that I'm on the right burner. That would be bad. We're gonna go ahead and fill up our tray because it is gonna take a little bit for all this to melt. And we want to go ahead and fill this up here as well, so that way we're doing two things at once and not wasting our time. So I usually cut maybe about 1.5 inches, 2 inches worth of jute. Just go ahead and cut as many as I can. That way I have plenty of them. Now that we have that done, we're going to go ahead and go straight to filling up our tray. Now, you don't want to fill this up too high, but you don't want to make it too low. You don't want to make it too dense or too light. Basically what I mean by that is you want to be able to fill up that square just right, so that when we put your lint in there, it feels a little firm, not too firm, but just soft enough that it stays in there, because you want to have a lot of lint in there, but you don't want to have too much lint that you can't fill it up with wax, because this wax is the fuel to our fires. If there's too much wax and not enough lint, it's just going to go ahead and melt all that wax, and it's for nothing. If we have too much lint in here and we don't have enough space for the wax to get in there, it's just going to burn up this lint real quick. The lint is super flammable. If you look at a YouTube video and you just see somebody put a spark on there or go ahead and ignite it with a lighter, it's gone within like 5 or 6 seconds. So the idea with this is that we want to add the fuel to the fire, so that way it keeps it burning for 15 minutes or so that way it lasts. Otherwise, if we put too little in there, it's not going to be able to make it all the way to the end. So again, just going to go ahead and fast forward all the way through this, that way you don't have to wait on me, and by that time, this will be done. Just keep in mind that when you are filling these in, it's going to take a lot of lint. I grabbed a wad about this big, and I'm only halfway through. I might need to have to grab some more here from my bag real quick. One thing that you probably noticed here that I've already put down all the wicks here. I find that putting it diagonally just helps keep it in place, but allows it to be able to stay attached to the fire starter. So that way when the wax pours in, it already adheres to it and it's already down the bottom. Don't have to worry about attaching it at the very end. So remember, surface, hot. Don't want to burn yourselves. So just gently go ahead and pour it in. You can see that it'll go ahead and start absorbing it. You can kind of be lenient at first just to make sure that you're getting enough wax in there. And make sure that you're covering all the dry spots. And then you can go over and fill in the difference. But don't overfill it too much, because again, you don't want to have too much wax. You want to have that perfect even amount. I want to go ahead and wipe down your pot, just because residue does tend to stick on there or roll down, and we'll get down to the bottom, and we don't want that to get on your stove. Now if you have one of those cheapy stoves that your wife doesn't care about, you don't care about, or it's just something that's in your backyard or whatever that you have hanging around, it's alright. You don't have to do this. Now we're going to go ahead and take those and dispose of those here in a little trash collector. Just kind of a mid reminder here. I did mention that stove surface is hot. Keep in mind, this wax as well is very hot. I know that some of you that already know that. It's probably just something that's repetitive for you. This stuff can burn you. Can't exactly say how far it would go in burning your skin. I have played with it in the past, but very carefully, where you can be able to play with it on your fingers, but at low temperatures, not at this kind of temperature. But this stuff can burn you. Just please bear that in mind while you are doing this. It's not something that you should take lightly either. Now that these things are done solidifying in the freezer, we're going to go ahead and just pop them out. So again, 5 minutes is probably like the minimum that you want to put it in there. You're more than welcome to leave it in for 10 minutes or more. That way they'll come out solid and we don't have to worry about them. kind of fun to see all the different styles that we have here. And just like that, return back to the original shape. Perfect. Okay, so here's the one that we overfilled, and this one looks like the one that we underfilled. So you can tell that this thing is just mostly stuff, and this one is very, very transparent. Then also we have our normal ones. You can kind of see some of the corners didn't quite get filled in, but that's okay. The idea is to make it that not most of this is wax. We want to have an even amount of lint and wax. So we'll go ahead and save those two for our experiment, and then we'll go ahead and use one of these as well. As you can see, we have our blues. And we have our reds. We have our greens. And then our pinks. So here's the blue and the pinks. Kind of see through them. As I said, as the wax cools off, it does go ahead and kind of shrink just a little bit. There we didn't quite get enough in that one, but it's fine. It did go ahead and get the wax all the way through the bottom. But if it doesn't go all the way through to the bottom, then yeah, it looks like we got them all here. But yeah, if it doesn't, then you'll start seeing patches that would look similar to this, but on the bottom, and you'd see just a whole bunch of wax, whether it was exposed to the wax, or you'd see the lint. Kind of like that one, not too much, but you can kind of see it right there. But as you can see, it looks like everything is how it should be. Most of these have the wick sticking up. That's the idea. The problem that I found on, or at least the one thing that I don't care for with a lot of fire starters, is the fact that they don't have any kind of wicks. All it has is just the material, and sometimes it takes some time for that material to catch. Whereas with this jute, it is extremely flammable, very, very easy to light. I do plan on soaking quite a few of these in water and trying to see if they can light after being soaked in water for an hour or more. That way we can see exactly how waterproof these are and how quickly this takes to the flame once we actually get that started. So I'll go ahead and get the other colors set up here, and that way we can have the actual beeswax as well as the color white. The more kind of the, what is it? This really, really cheapy stuff that we got from this candle. See exactly what we've got going on here.